Like time.
So Santana singing.
Can be free. I can be free. I can rise. See free. I can be free. But when you're all alone and there's nowhere left to go.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum coming to you from McCollum Wellness Radio, KSCO, and very happy to be here. I have a very amazing good friend of mine here, Dr. Mindy Pelz, and we've known each other for a long time. We've both been chiropractors for years, and we followed each other around in different groups. And about 4 years ago, we met up again as we were down at CalGym. Yeah. And I saw this amazing guy named Dr. Dan Papatok, and talking about fix the cell to get well, and these concepts that I have been always very interested in. And I was really blown away. So I was hanging out around his booth, and then I see you just walk up, give him a big hug, and walk in the back and going, what the heck is going on here? So I remember catching up to you and going, Mindy, what's going on? She goes, man, don't even ask any questions, just sign up. And I did. And it's been a rocket ride ever since. So some amazing information. Yeah. So anyway, Dr. Pelz, Mindy, you've been doing some amazing stuff. You know, I mean, we both have written several books, started one together years ago. Yep. And now you've got this, book number 4 coming out? Yeah, this is book number 4. And this is the biggest one because it was published with Hay House. So it's really going out into the world in a big way. Yeah, so. Hay House is, and I can be, having written 6 books myself, I can tell you it's very difficult to land something like you did. But this company had a huge interest in the book you're writing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it and why they were interested? Oh, I love that question because, I've been teaching fasting on my YouTube channel for a really long time, last 7 years. And there's been a tremendous amount of interest in it. And what I saw really clearly was that women needed to fast differently than men. Yeah. And we really found a formula for it. So when I went to go write this book, we put it out there into the world, wrote a proposal, and my agent pitched it to many of the top 5 publishers. And there was a lot of conversation about, well, we have a lot of fasting books, and I even had one author or one publisher say we're not doing women's health books anymore. Oh my gosh. I know, which is really scary. But Hay House came in and they're like, this book needs to get out into the world. We see your mission. We want to help you. We're all in, and they have continued to be all in. They actually bought my last 2 books. They've contracted me now for another book. Wow. And what I love about them is that they're all in women's health. So they're really looking for people who can amplify that message. Yeah, and you're giving me goosebumps just talking about it because it's so great. And to see what you've done in the last couple of years, you're an international speaker. You speak in front of thousands of people. A lot of you're always on the road. Yeah, speaking. I am on the road a lot. Like to go from clinical practice, where you're kind of handcuffed to being in your practice all the time. So this year, there was a time where this summer I was going 8 weeks. Just traveling nonstop, and then I just got done with another 6 weeks. So that's amazing. Yeah. So the book is called Fast Like a Girl. Yeah. Yep. And it's so amazing because when we started learning about fasting together, and it was when Dr. Yoshinori Asumi, he won the Nobel Prize in 2016 for a term called autophagy. Yeah. Which we loved. It was autophagy, self-eating. The body eats itself when it's fasting, but it only eats the bad stuff, not the good stuff. Where the world had always thought when you're not eating, you're burning up and killing yourself. That's right. And if you do it wrong, you are. But what Dr. Yoshinori Asumi came up with and his study
basically prove that if you can do this correctly, your body's going to break down the bad cells and the toxins in the body, and then your body's going to create new stem cells. And that happens ultimately after 3 days of fasting is when that occurs.
Yeah, and I think the biggest surprise to me has been how much the world wants to know about autophagy.
Yeah.
Like and for you and I, the thing that like got me so excited about autophagy is that you and I really connect on the philosophy that the body heals itself.
Yeah.
And so to your point, when we look at fasting, I think the cultural belief is that the longer I fast, the more damage will be done.
Yeah.
And what Osumi showed us is actually no. And there have been other great fasting researchers like Walter Longo who have showed us that actually when you do certain times of fasting, so Osumi's was autophagy at about 17 hours, you trigger these healing mechanisms inside the body that you cannot trigger with a supplement, a medication. Like there's no other way to trigger it. And I think that's what got you and I so excited about this is like, wait, the intelligence does this?
Yeah.
Like another check for why the body's so flipping amazing.
Yeah, again, you give me goosebumps because, innate intelligence, it's so interesting when you work with other healthcare professionals and even people coming out of school these days, like some of the doctors coming out of school, some of them don't quite, you have to really get them to realize the reason the body heals is because life itself wants to survive. And I always use the example of, you've ever seen a weed grow out of a crack in cement? Out in the middle of nowhere, there's a weed. You pull it, it comes back. You pull it, and it comes back. Or you see these giant trees growing out of a granite rock that's splitting back.
Yeah.
So life has this amazing ability to survive, and we just have to learn the tools. And we found that it goes down to the cell, at the cellular level.
Yeah.
And so now we dove into this fasting thing, the intermittent fasting. We took hundreds, if not thousands, of patients through this before it was really a fad.
Yes. Yeah, and you remember we did dry fasting. We had a dry fast day. We tested all the different fasting principles on ourselves, on our patients, in our doctor group.
Yeah.
You're right, before it was a fad, and now there's so much momentum with it.
Yeah, but also there's a lot of people doing it wrong.
I agree.
I still hear people come in saying, oh, I only eat 2 meals a day, every day, forever. But I stopped losing weight a little while ago.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because they don't understand the principles. And we don't need to go into that necessarily now, because I really want to talk about how you found yourself a few years ago having a hard time being a woman. Yeah. And we thought we had the answer with detoxification, getting the heavy metals, molds, and infections out of our body, and fasting, and break down the old cells and create new cells through this. And then all of a sudden you hit a brick wall. What happened?
Yeah, it's such a good story because what ended up happening was I was looking for a tool to help me with my perimenopausal symptoms. And that was about the time that we all discovered fasting.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, let me throw some fasting at my life and see what happens. And at that time I was doing maybe 13, 14 hours of fasting a day. But I was doing it every single day, and I noticed my brain all of a sudden became more clear. I started losing weight. I didn't have to look at exercise as my weight loss tool. Actually, fasting was. I didn't crash at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm a little bit of that personality of like, if a little bit's good, more is better. Exactly. So I just started fasting a ton, and then I hit a wall in 2 places. One, anxiety went through the roof for me. I couldn't even sit on my couch. I felt so anxious. Energy was still really high, but I couldn't get my body to relax at night to sleep. And my moods were all over the place. I was just high, low, high, low. So I ran a hormone test on myself. And at that time, I was 47 years old. I still had a cycle. And I had the hormone level of a postmenopausal woman, like in her 60s or 70s.
Wow.
And that's when I took a step back and I was like, wait, maybe women need to do this different. And so let me dive into our sex hormone differences between men and women and see if I need to modify anything.
Yeah.
And that's what I discovered, the formula that I put in Fast Like a Girl.
Wow. So Fast Like a Girl, sounds fun.
Right?
And so when you talk about this, there's some things that, so you don't have to be a woman going through menopause or perimenopause or through menopause to take the principles of this book, thus the girl.
Right.
Because women's hormones fluctuate so much.
Yes.
And even this is a misunderstanding. I think a lot of people think that when their cycle stops, their hormone cycle stops.
Yes.
No, it's just below the threshold. And you
Yes.
still cycle your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And if you're depleted at any one of them, you're going to still have trouble, even though you're not having a cycle, and you start scratching your head going, what's wrong with me?
That's
Is it
right.
something wrong with me? Am I mentally unstable or what?
Yeah.
How do
You know us, you know us well, Duncan. Always just, I'm so grateful for the men out there that are like coming on this hormonal train with this book and just these conversations. So the book is really for women of all ages. And to your point, testosterone is the major hormone that run men.
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys get it every 15 minutes. Testosterone will be produced on the outer cells of the testes. It goes up into the brain and converts to estrogen. So when you look at lifestyle, you really just need to live a lifestyle that's in accordance with testosterone and what it demands.
Mm-hmm.
Women, we are not that way. We have three hormones. We have estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And it is produced on the outer cells of our ovaries and our adrenal glands, which is key. So when we go through perimenopause or menopause or with a cycling woman, we've got to look at these three sex hormones very differently. Like, for example, in the book, I say that estrogen and progesterone, we got to look at them like twin sisters. They look at exactly the same, but they have vastly different personalities. Estrogen is going to make you more outgoing. Estrogen loves like fasting and exercise and keto and like all the extreme things you want to do, all the extreme biohacks. Progesterone wants you to nurture yourself, and progesterone wants to keep glucose higher, and progesterone doesn't do well if cortisol goes up. So for the cycling woman, she's got to think about when does estrogen come in and then when does progesterone come in, and I've got to change my food, my fast. Ideally, I'd like the women to change their exercise. Like there's a whole rhythm that has to alter or change as a woman is just in her 30-day menstrual cycle. You guys don't have to think about that so much.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And, I used to teach a class years ago called "You're Not Losing Your Mind, You're Losing Your Hormones." And so understanding the difference in it. And you know what, as you're talking about that, I thought about the term hormesis. Hormesis means the body loves change. If too much of one thing can kill you, like too much water can kill you. But the body with the estrogen and progesterone cycle, that's hormesis in a way.
That's it. I never even actually thought about that. And
just now.
Yeah, I love words.
Yeah.
And you're right. So it's, you've got the first four letters exactly the same.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm wondering if, originally hormones were named because of hormesis, which is really a big premise of what I'm teaching in everything, which is we, as women, we need to change everything to adapt to these hormones, whether we are looking at a monthly time or you're going through menopause. These hormones need to be catered to in much different fashion.
Wow, that's amazing. We're about to take our first break here. I have Dr. Mindy Pelz here, a specialist in hormones and fasting and an author of 4 books, an incredible chiropractor, very good friend of mine. We're going to take a short break and be back. And I just wanted to say for all of you KSCO listeners out there, it's been a great ride for the last 4 years. Hopefully we're going to keep things going, and I'll be back in just a second.
This is Dr. Duncan McCollum here, and I have Pastor Bud with me. He wanted to just go ahead and tell you a little bit of his experience. Yeah, I injured my knee years ago from sports and being dumb, and after the first stem cell treatment, after the very first one, I could do a full knee squat, and doctors told me that we want to replace your knee, and my knee was just ache just from sitting, and you probably experienced that if you have knee problems, but now, no ache, I can walk without pain, and when I sit, I have no pain, and I just love it. I'd recommend it to anybody. Terrific. When we looked at your x-rays, your discs and your knees look pretty good too. Yeah, they're improving so much. I just love it. I can't wait for my treatment every week. Highly recommend it to anyone. So you'd recommend they do the $49 special to see if it will work for them? Oh, absolutely. That's what drove me in with the $49 special. I thought I got $50 to spend to just see, and it certainly paid off. Call 831-459-9990. Thanks.
This is Dr. Duncan McCollum, and I have this amazing patient, Gayleen, here, who walked into our office, well, barely walked into our office, and she had a lot of attempts to try to fix her health, and she's had some tremendous changes here. So I was wondering if you would like to just tell our audience about that.
Well, like Dr. McCollum said, I came into the office in December, hardly able to walk and bent over. And within 3 visits, I was standing up straight, walking. I couldn't believe it. That's never happened to me before. It's been a very rough road, but we're getting there, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah, and you had 2 back surgeries as well, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, in 1995. 1995, yeah.
And so they didn't really solve your problem.
No, they didn't.
And you came in, we did some stem cell treatments on you and some chiropractic on you, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So you're happy.
I'm happy. Everyone here is just awesome. They're all here to help you. They're all so sweet. And I'm glad I came here.
Thank you so much, Gayleen. And I just really appreciate you being here as well. You're such a pleasure when you come in.
Thanks.
So you should listen to Gayleen, see if we can help your health.
That's right. Anyone that needs help, please come in.
Thank you. Okay, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum. I'm back, and again, I'm here with my good friend Mindy Pelz and her book Fast Like a Girl, and I want to talk more about this. This is actually coming out. It's going to be released on December 27th, right?
Yeah, it's released on the 27th, and believe it or not, this is literally the first fasting manual specific for women. Although men, I'm getting a lot of feedback that men will benefit from it too, so we can chat about that. But can you believe there's never been, I mean, with the fasting craze, and there's never been a manual for women.
Yeah, and you have your own perfect storm that brought you to figure it out. We always talk about perfect storms with health in our group of doctors. There's always several things that will occur that cause somebody to their health to go south.
Right.
And oftentimes there's a lot of different sticks you have to pick up off this pickup stick pile to get down to the root cause of the problem. But and fasting has been phenomenal. And just like you, I overdid it to a point because I figured, what too much is. And we're trained doctors, right? Yeah. And we still overdo it. So it's so important for you out there. Don't try to do this yourself. I mean, get a book, Mindy's book. I mean, and where can you buy it?
Well, you can buy it. You can go to fastlikeagirl.com. Okay. And I'll tell you where I'm encouraging people to buy it because I love supporting the local independent bookstores. Yeah. So if you go to booktopia.org, okay. It's on fastlikeagirl.com. Okay. It'll have the book sent to you from a local bookstore, which to me that's what we want to do, is support that. I want the indie bookstores to come back.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I was just looking through the table of contents because this is, one thing is one size does not fit all. Absolutely. Even with all different type of women, you're not going to have the same thing. You're not going to fast the same way. And but however, during the cycle, there's different things that you want to pay attention to, and that's what you really nailed. Yeah. So we'll talk, we'll get into that to some degree, but so just some of the chapter titles, It's Not Your Fault. Of course, nobody knows. Women are not studied in health. It's always been men. All of the studies go through men, and the women just kind of like follow along and try this and try that, but they've not been handled. They've not been helped.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know why, because the women are often the decision makers in the family, and I can only guess that we're hard to study because of our hormones. It's really, and not a lot of effort has been put into studying us. But in that chapter, really what I wanted to do is I've interacted with hundreds of thousands of women, and I'm finding that women are really shamed, and they either guilt themselves or they shame themselves for their failed diets, for the doctors not believing in them. So what I did in that chapter is I go through the 5 reasons why diets have failed you. You have not failed diets. And just to break that paradigm open.
And we even talk about lifestyle changes versus diets, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because when people go on a diet, then they get off the diet, everything screws up again.
Exactly.
So you're
exactly.
teaching, and what we like to teach in all of our health areas, it's a lifestyle change,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
And then you have the healing power of fasting. We don't necessarily have to run down every one of these,
Yeah.
but you talk about build a fasting lifestyle unique to you.
Yeah.
And so, one thing, and if anything that you want to point out in here.
Yeah, I would say the second chapter is the one, and this is again come up in so much conversation. So when I put the chapters together and the information together, there's so much research out there on fasting and how do you navigate it all. So what I did is I created 6 different length fasts. And then I show you the science behind each one, and I gave you bullet points of like why you would want to do each one of these. And that chapter actually might be my favorite because it's really, if you want the Cliff Notes version on fasting, and this is really for both men and women, then you're going to want to make sure that you dive into that chapter. It'll help clear everything up for you.
Okay, cool. We're on the little technical thing here. Hold on a sec. So, yeah, use that mic and get a little closer to it. Okay, cool. So, then the other thing about, a couple things about fasting too, just hold that close, get as close as you can. One of the other things about fasting as well is we know that it can lengthen your life.
Right, and you, I mean, you being the anti-aging guru, I agree. And you know what's the basic way of looking at this is that when you hit some of these longer fasts, and longer fasts to me are like 17 hours, your body goes into the state of autophagy.
Yeah.
Autophagy, we can think of it as the cells clean their act up. They, any viruses, bacteria that are inside, they'll kick that cell out or kick that stuff out. They'll repair the parts on the inside. But it also stimulates around that time something called apoptosis.
Yeah.
And apoptosis is where the intelligence in the cell looks around and it goes, gosh, you know what? This cell is aging quickly. This cell is going to turn into a cancer cell. This cell is not a good one because, to your point, everything is built off of survival. We're trying to make sure that we stay alive.
Yeah.
So it gets rid of these senescent cells. So that's incredible. It's one of the greatest anti-aging tools I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Which is why you got to train yourself to do it and do it right.
Yeah, I remember. I'm the kind of guy that would never miss a meal. And
me too.
when I remember the first seminar I went to, and I think it was in Atlanta or something like that. You'd been there a year before me, I think. And he goes, "Okay, we're fasting today." And I go, "What? In the seminar? I need energy, right?" And I was actually scared. I started getting anxiety about not eating. But you take a look at America. We're the most obese country in the world.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're starving to death.
Yeah. So something interesting on that, and in my research for the book, I found something called the thrifty gene hypothesis. And this is the belief that when we go back to the cave person days and we look at who survived those harsh conditions where they didn't have food for long periods of time, they had a very specific genetic profile, and they're calling it the thrifty gene. And that the humans today, our ancestors, the ones that were able to progress out of that, gave us this gene, and we still have this gene. And so when we are eating all day long and not leaving time for periods where we're fasting, we're actually going against our genetic profile. And they believe that this might be one of the reasons why diabetes has accelerated in our world, is because the humans on the earth right now all have this gene inside them.
Wow. And again, the United States is 60% of us are diabetic or pre-diabetic.
Right.
So something's going wrong.
Something's going wrong, yeah. And back to the hormesis idea is really the goal of health is not constant comfort.
Yes.
And so we've got to, and anybody who goes to the gym knows this.
Yeah.
We don't go to the gym and do the same thing over and over again.
Well, a lot of people do. And
they do, that's true.
Yeah.
But then I would ask you, if you're that person, is your health fitness improving with that style of approach?
Yeah, and they may or may not know, and we're getting a little bit off the track, but it's okay. They may or may not know because they're just in a busy lifestyle and they go de-stress and run on the treadmill and lift the same weights every other day. but they don't realize, and the term hormesis, we should explain, it's like a bell curve.
Yeah.
When you're going up that bell curve, that's good. But as soon as you cross the top and start going down, that's bad.
Yeah.
So anything could be, we know that some toxins are good for us. A little bit is good.
Yeah.
Too much will kill us.
Yeah.
Right? Because we need to have our immune response that builds up around that stuff.
Yeah.
And
yeah, agreed. I mean, I think that again, hormesis is one of the greatest principles of healing.
Yeah.
If you just put enough stress on the body, it will repair. A question I get a lot is, well, if I have adrenal fatigue, how can I fast? I'm hypoglycemic, I'm exhausted. And so in the book, I have a protocol for that where I show just a little bit tiptoeing yourself into fasting, where we're just putting a little bit of a stressor on it. Actually will repair the adrenal, the HPA axis, because the body has no choice. It's you just give it a little bit of stress and it's going to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, it's
so,
a constant stress on the pedal to the metal stuff
that's
that kills us. And that's exactly really to the point for somebody to understand hormesis is when you're going 100% of the time, all the time, there's no change, your body will burn out.
That's right.
That's why you want to, work out a muscle quickly and then relax it, and that's why we call in fasting feast and famine cycles.
That's right.
The complete 100% polar different things, but that is what hormesis is. You do one thing and then you do another. Again, in the female body, you have first an estrogen surge followed by progesterone surge. Those are changes. The seasons are changes. Our ancestors that you were talking about, they ate with the seasons.
That's right.
And our body needs that. And we need to learn. I think Dr. Papa says the average person eats 8 foods.
Yeah. Right. Well, okay. So then that's an interesting concept. And in the book, I have a whole section on how to specifically break your fast. And a large part about it is your microbiome. Yeah. When we eat the same 6 foods, 8 foods, 10 foods over and over again, we feed only a certain amount of bacteria. So when you go into a fasted state, you actually are changing the terrain in the gut. You're making it a better environment for good bacteria. But if you go back to those same 8 foods over and over and over again, you're only repopulating a certain amount of bacteria. And you have trillions of bacteria, thousands of different species that will serve you in different ways. Yeah. So you'll see in the book, there's a lot of variation of different food styles, different ways to break your fast. Because what I'm trying to do is come at the microbiome from as many different angles as we can. Yeah, and that's hormesis. Right. Exactly. There you go. Yeah. So who you guys, I started to throw out a technical term that's probably very few people have heard of. We actually hadn't really embraced it till a while ago. And that's what's so cool about the group that we hang out with. Yeah. And we're going to go to that farm in Tennessee coming up in April. That's going to be so much fun. It's like 6 feet of virgin topsoil. Yeah. And how the foods and how supplements and nutrition comes out of that. Because basically one of the biggest problems that we have is a lack of nutrition and our body's cells not being able to absorb the nutrition. So we're talking about hormones. Hormones act on cells, right? So in your book, do you talk about the health of a cell and how important that is? Or is that one of your earlier books? Yeah, in my earlier books, I more went into cellular health. This one is really about the principles of fasting, marrying the principles of hormones. So I do talk, I said the first part of the book is really about identifying why fasting works. And then I dive into women's hormones, because what I found is that women don't even understand their hormones. I mean, I was in a car the other day with a 55-year-old woman, a 38-year-old woman, and the ex-CEO of Spanx, which is, if you're not familiar with Spanx, is like a woman-owned brand, and is clothing mostly for women. And so he's hanging around a lot of women, and we were talking hormones, and all 3 of these people in the car were like, had no clue. Yeah. Like, I don't know when, and the 2 women were like, I don't know when estrogen comes in. The 55-year-old woman is like, she's going into menopause and she never learned when estrogen and progesterone came in, and she doesn't know what hormones are going down because of menopause. And those are the kind of things you'll learn in the book that I hope to change. That's so powerful. I mean, so many times I've talked on the days of dropping your body off at the doctor's office and going shopping and said, just fix it. I'll be back to pick it up later. That's how we were trained growing up. That we had no clue about our health. Yep. We would distrust what's going on medically. And
we can't do that anymore. We're rated 47th in the world for health. You know, we take 80% of all the opioids in the world,
That's crazy.
and we're only 4% of the adult population. So,
Yeah.
and again, women, that's the mainstream populace of our country. Then we have women that have been just not even considered when they're doing all of this stuff.
That's right. You know, I saw a statistic the other day that shocked me, which is in America, you have close to 50% of menopausal women taking HRT, whereas in Japan, only 4% of women take HRT.
Wow.
Okay, same women, same hormones. Why are more women having to look at using a medication? Are they being forced to? Is it because we don't understand our hormones? Is our lifestyle? You know, when we look at the way the traditional Japanese diet is much more conducive to hormonal balance.
Yeah. So I mean, we have the understanding that we are basically a sugar-based.
Carb loving.
Yeah, and our body doesn't know how to deal with a ketone, which is what you get into when you start to fast. And you know, they're so efficient, but they, you know, it's like I often joke, you know, if you ever watch American Pickers, it's like, you know, you go into the garage and go, look, Fred, there's a ketone burner. You know, what the heck is that? I heard of one once. But the real cool thing about our body is we can take control of it. Simple concepts, the teachings in your book are going to help women understand what their cycle is, what hormones are, and what they do to the body.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I know so many women when they just go, and me, you know, they talk about, well, I don't know what's going on in there. I'm just supposed to take these medications, and we're not getting any healthier.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because I've been doing research for the next book, which is going to be about what happens to the female brain over 40. And I'm really excited for that one. One of the things I learned is that the most common time for women to commit suicide is 45 to 55.
Huh. Wow.
That is crazy if you stop and you think about that. These are our mothers, they have kids, they have careers, they have communities. Like, why are these women turning to suicide as an answer? And when you break it down into hormones, you can see it very clearly.
Yeah.
And it's the loss of hormones. And the loss of knowledge. We don't have any understanding of it, and then doctors don't have any understanding of it. So you walk in, and then you're given SSRIs for your depression, which isn't going to help your loss of hormones.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to me. The ignorance. Women are suffering at the hands of ignorance right now.
Yeah, and it's not. And your first chapter is that it's not your fault.
It's not your fault. So that's what we got to break apart.
Yeah.
Is we got to take the guilt and the shame and it must be me away from women.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping this book is going to crack this conversation open so that we as women can start to at least talk about it. And the men, you know, that are coming along the ride with us, let's just start having this conversation, but you got to get to know your hormones first before the conversation can be had.
Yeah. So this is Dr. Mindy Pelz. Her book is coming out on the 27th of December. Fast Like a Girl. You can get it at fastlikeagirl.com. And what was the place you want them to go to?
Booktopia.org will go to your local independent. And on fastlikeagirl.com, it's there. You can just link it to it.
Okay, cool. And this is so interesting. I'm so glad we were able to pull this off and get you over here.
Yeah, thank you.
While the station's still here, we need all the help we can get. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Hey, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum, and I have this amazing patient, Lauren, here, and she had a few things to say.
Hi, I'm Lauren Spencer, a local realtor, and I've been seeing Duncan for years now. I had a biking accident, and he's been adjusting me since then, and it's been amazing. But lately, I've had trouble with my feet, and I'm an avid walker, avid biker, avid golfer. And my feet were aching all the time. And I tried Duncan's TRT machine, which is an amazing stem cell machine that rejuvenates the cells. And my feet, I've had like 3 or 4 sessions with the machine, and my feet are like new, no aches, no pains. It's a miracle. So I really highly recommend Duncan and his chiropractic services, but also that TRT machine. You got to try it. Thanks.
Wow, thanks, Lauren. That was awesome. So we still have the $49 special. Come on in and see if it works for you. Thank you. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum, and I would like you to listen to a couple testimonials from my patients about our new TRT machine. You should come try it, but here's what they have to say.
2 months ago, I got knocked down my horse and I got a grade 2 pull on my hamstring, and from there everything went to hell. I was walking 3.5 miles a day, and went from that to walking less and less because it was so painful, and my other knee started hurting me. And then I stepped off a ladder and jammed my knee. It took me the next morning 5 minutes by the time I stood up to get out of my bed. It was so painful. At the same time, I found out about the TRT doc, and I knew that that was for me. So almost feeling completely normal. So it's been great. I was walking stiff-kneed on one side because it was just flopping out of place. Now I can bend my knee and walk. I totally recommend this one time, and you'll just go, whoa. You don't realize how much you use your toes for balance until there's nothing back in my toes, and my balance is greatly improved. Definitely recommend it. So call today for your $49 introductory special on the TRT machine to see if it works for you. Call 831-459-9990. 831-459-9990. McCollum Family Chiropractic. Okay, we're back. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum, and the machine is amazing, right, Mindy?
Yeah, I know. I've experienced it, and I'm like, yeah, it is really that good. So, yeah,
It's so fun to see the people's changes.
super fun.
Yeah. So, okay, we've got a little bit of time left here with Dr. Mindy Pelz, her book, Fast Like a Girl. Fascinating book. Because we've had such a long history together studying the subject of fasting and then watching you go through this transition, I am so excited that this is coming out to help the women out there in the world.
Yeah,
they need it.
Yeah, I really am hoping that it's going to be a game changer for women's health. The way we set it up is there's something for everybody in there. You can choose your fasting length. I have 2 food styles in there. That are, one that I call ketobiotic, that's a higher carb, higher protein version of keto. I have a hormone feasting way of eating that you can feed your hormones, that's a much higher carb.
Wow.
I've got recipes, I have how to break your fast, I have all the troubleshooting. So it really is years of research and experience that got poured into that book.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm going to touch on something that you told me about a while ago, and that is and talking about that funny new term hormesis, that you discovered that there's certain times in a cycle not to fast.
Yeah.
And there's certain times that you want to take a lot of carbs. Yeah, I think it's right before your cycle starts, right? Because it helps balance the estrogen and help the estrogen and insulin increase to not give you that depletion, which causes a lot, or it's too much or too little that can cause a problem.
The most fascinating thing to me about applying the principles that are in the book to so many women, if you're a cycling woman, and almost every cycling woman or every woman who, when they were cycling, will tell you that the week before our periods, we crave carbs. Mm-hmm. And the week before our period, we often don't feel like doing anything. We want to kind of hang out on the couch and be antisocial. Well, if you look at the needs of progesterone, that's when progesterone's coming in. Mm-hmm. Progesterone actually will make you more insulin resistant that week, so glucose can be higher. So you're craving carbs because progesterone's saying to you, hey, I need some glucose so that I can make this whole, I need to be able to come out. I need to have the right fuel to be able to do that. So if we're fasting, if we're in keto that week before, we're not going to make enough progesterone, and then your cycle will be off. The other thing is when progesterone goes high, cortisol goes, I always say when progesterone goes shy, when cortisol goes high.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I'll remember it.
It's a great way to remember it, because anytime there is stress, then progesterone's going to get shy. So that week before our period, if we are overdoing anything, whether it's working out, work, just stress in life, you're going to see your cycle get thrown off. Same thing for the perimenopausal and menopausal woman. That progesterone is declining.
Yeah.
So you're going to be more sensitive to cortisol. You're going to have bring in more mindfulness tools. You're going to have to understand your hormones even deeper, because as progesterone gets lost, our ability to be able to handle stress really changes.
Yeah, so interesting. Obviously, I've never gone through these cycles, but so you're saying even we know that you can carb load, and read the book, get the information so that you fully understand this. But I want the listeners out there to get the idea that these tools work.
Yeah.
For instance, so now we know that we want to carb load, and a lot of people don't even know what carbs are.
Yeah.
I'll say, you want to have a low carb or high carb diet. Well, I don't eat many carbs. I eat vegetables. Vegetables are carbs. I mean, and it's not been taught.
Yeah.
We don't understand what carbs are. Good carbs, bad carbs. The good healthy carbs versus the sugary carbs.
Yeah. I'm really a fan of eating nature's carbs, and I think this is the easiest way to understand nutrition.
Yeah.
Is eat what comes from the planet and it's coming off the earth. So when we look at like the carbs that tend to destroy us are the processed foods, and those are mostly the ones that are in the middle aisles that at the grocery store that can stay there for years and still be supposedly fresh after a while. So anything that's processed, refined sugar, refined flours, that's not good at any time of your cycle. But the back half of your cycle, like that week before your period, lean into your potatoes, your sweet potatoes, your fruit, your vegetables. Those are going to be incredible, and they're a little bit higher in glucose. They'll spike your blood sugar a little bit more, and your body will do really well with them in that back half of your cycle. Whereas the front half of your cycle, estrogen doesn't want a lot of carbs. So you're going to want to stick to more of the leafy green vegetables, more vegetables in general, maybe the lower sugared fruits like berries and some green apples, and lean into more protein.
More protein and healthy oils.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, so great. So these are tools that you can start with right now, kind of experiment. But also you're just saying that the week before the cycle, you shouldn't be working out.
Yeah, even you shouldn't be working out hard. I was just on a podcast interview with a fitness trainer the other day who said to me, I want to understand this because most of the women that I'm training are 35 and older. Mm-hmm. And so we went through the whole cycle looking at what different types of training should be put in place. Mm-hmm. But if you think about, like, if you're trying to do a Spartan race, or you're trying to do, if you're CrossFitting, or you're doing something really extreme, that week before your cycle, you are going to hormonally damage yourself. So use that week as recovery. Go to yoga, do more Pilates, go hiking. I mean, here in Santa Cruz, we have so many beautiful mountains. Go for a walk on the beach. Yeah. And use that time to rest. And then your cycle starts. Give it a couple of days. Usually it takes 1 to 3 days for, that transition. And now you can power up on your bigger exercises and really do more with your workouts, leaving that recovery time for that back half of your cycle.
Yes, hormesis comes back to us again.
Right, exactly.
That's amazing. And, when you take women in the workplace too, because, in this wild economy that we have, whether it's going up or going down, I mean, it's 24/7 when you go to work, right?
Right.
So this is something that people need to put and understand in the workplace too.
Yeah, it's a really excellent question and point, because do you know that Spain came out last year and said that they are authorizing a 3-day menstrual leave for all women?
Wow.
And that no questions asked, you can take it whenever you want. Now, my brain went to, well, I hope they take it the week before their period. I hope they don't just take it when they start their period, because that's what hormonally would be best for them.
Yeah.
There's also nonprofits that are now emerging, helping corporations understand what happens to women as they go through menopause, mm-hmm. because the loss of hormones changes our cognition. Yeah. It changes our ability to be able to handle stress. And so if we just understand that, we teach women and corporations and the workplace in general how to ebb and flow with these hormones, you will get the best from us. In fact, I kept saying that during the pandemic, we just needed to get a bunch of ovulating women together, and they would have solved the problem, because you have estrogen at its highest, testosterone at its highest, and a little bit of progesterone. That's your hormonal superpower time. Yeah. And so you're going to have a lot better hormonal resources to be able to mentally handle anything.
That's great. And also, so as a guy who loves to cook, I guess I should be able to prepare the right foods at the right time. of the
Yeah, right? It depends on who you're cooking for.
Yeah.
You know, if you're cooking for your daughter, yes. If
Yeah.
you're cooking for your girlfriend, you're gonna want to know, you know, what she's going through in her
Yeah.
hormonal world.
Yeah, that's amazing. And one of the things that I guess we can call it a tenet of fasting, when we went through all of the benefits, the one that I always considered to be the most important was hormone optimization.
Yeah.
Fixing the cell, making sure that your body's healthy, keeping, and I agree, I don't eat stuff that comes out of packages.
No.
I used to say, if you pick up a package and it has words and names you don't understand, put it down, but I just don't pick them up in the first place.
That's right.
I can't think of the last time I ate a packaged food.
No.
Because it is, food by nature.
Yeah.
And that's where you're going to get the most. And an interesting thing, we got a few minutes left, but you were talking about the microbiome.
Mm-hmm.
And Santa Cruz has incredible farmers markets and stuff like this. And the microbiome are the bacteria that live in our gut. We have 100 trillion of them, more than human cells, I believe.
Yep.
And a lot of people go to the farmer's market and buy the same spinach from the same farm. And we now have learned what?
Yeah, I love where you're going with this, because when I go to the farmer's market, I love to get to know the farmers in the first place. It's beautiful. But then I buy from different farmers because their soils are all going to have a different mineral content and a different microbe content.
Yeah.
So, make sure you vary all of that.
Yeah.
It's really important for our microbial health.
Hormesis.
Yep, right. And that's like the joke, right, amongst our group, is that when you understand hormesis is really a big tenet of that is change.
Yeah.
Make sure you keep changing.
Yeah.
And it's in the change that the body adapts.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're buying the food from the same place, or you're eating the same food, or you're fasting the same way, or exercising the same way, there's going to be a point at which the body's not benefiting from that as much. So keep changing it.
Yeah. And so one of the other things I just remembered when we were talking about apoptosis and senescent cells, I wanted to define those are senile cells. They're cells that are no longer functioning. They're just sitting around using up energy. But if anything, it's like a bowl of rotten apples.
Yeah.
You get one apple rotting and a bowl of apples, soon they'll all rot. So one of the cool things about fasting, understanding fast like a girl, but you are also breaking down these senescent cells and turning them into energy. The body burns them and recycles stuff out.
And if you think about cellular, repetition and growth, is that if you have a senile cell, and I love the way you said that, if you have a senile cell and it goes to replicate, it's going to replicate another senile cell.
Yeah.
So when we dip into these fasts and we use it to get rid of the senile cells, then now we got only healthy cells, and those healthy cells are going to replicate, which is a large reason why we're seeing this anti-aging effect to fasting, is because you get rid of the ones that no longer serve you so that they don't keep replicating and speed up the aging process.
Exactly. And my listeners have heard me talk about telomeres a lot.
Yeah.
Which are the little hairs at the end of the DNA strands that get shorter every time a cell replicates. It's like those horse tails, you keep breaking off a piece.
Yep.
And we know that fasting it's one of the only things that can increase the length of your telomeres, increase your life.
Yeah, and I would say it's so interesting about fasting, because if you look at all of the researchers out there, David Sinclair is a big one, but anybody who's in the anti-aging and longevity movement, they will all tell you that the top 3 things that they would recommend, of the top 3, fasting has to be in there for anti-aging.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's just a way of life.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. And the other thing I just want to point out too, if you haven't fasted before, it gets easier with time, don't you think?
Oh yeah.
But I don't know any other diet change I've ever made, or any other health habit I've ever made. Well, exercise gets easier with time, but but it's one of those ones that once you find your natural rhythm with it's freedom. It just becomes really easy to do.
Yeah, and we don't have time to go into a lot of things, but your body learns how to burn your own fuel, and the stored fuel, which is the fat,
right?
Which hormones are made extremely, a lot we need fat, we need amino acids, we need all this stuff to make those hormones.
Yeah.
But we've been eating a diet that is not allowing our body, a pantry full of those things we need to sustain our own health and life.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, when you look at, I was just at one of the largest functional medicine conferences in the world last week. I was speaking at in Vegas, and it was on anti-aging and longevity, and almost tied into every single lecture, and there were hundreds of lectures, was the need for keeping hormones in check. That if you want to stay healthy, if you want to slow aging down, you're gonna need to balance hormones.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, that's not discussed enough. It's almost like, and especially for women, it's almost like hormones has been like this dirty topic that we don't talk about because it's tied to our menstrual cycle, it's tied to our libido, it's, I had a man tell me the other day, he's like, oh, well, I can't talk about hormones because, I don't want to upset any women. And my feeling is, no, let's bring this to the table and let's all talk about it.
Yeah.
But first we got to get to understand it and how hormones show up for men and how they show up for women, and how do we understand each other at a hormonal level so that we can really support each other on a health journey.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And so again, we're about out of time. This is Dr. Mindy Pelz, Fast Like a Girl. Go buy it. Please buy it. Support her. She's done so much research. It's coming out on December 27th.
December 27th, yeah.
fastlikeagirl.com.
And you know what, one cool thing that
Yeah.
people might be interested in, Hay House actually came up with this idea. So it'll come out on December 27th. And then we're gonna do a worldwide 3-day water fast on January 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Oh, wow.
And it's completely free.
Uh-huh.
And I'm guiding everybody through it. We're gonna have a prep call, and then each day of the water fast, I have a webinar that I will show up and answer questions and inspire people.
That's great.
Yeah, and so Hay House is putting it out to their community. I'm putting it out to
How
mine.
do you find out?
Yeah, fastlikeagirl.com
Okay.
/waterfast.
Okay.
So, and there'll be a lot of great information out around it. But if you go to drmindipelz.com, it'll be on there. So
Yeah, PELZ.
Yeah.
And by the way, I forgot what I was going to say. But we got why don't you got like 50 seconds? What you just ended off.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this and you haven't fasted, I really want you to find your power back. And fasting is so cool because only you can do it for you, and you'll discover how powerful your body is. It's just like this reunion and reconnection to your body. So, and if you have fasted and you're like an intermittent faster, I'm going to encourage you to go to some of the longer fasts. So,
Yeah.
so I hope the book changes millions of lives. And thank you, Duncan, for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's so exciting. And all you guys, all you listeners out there, you need this book, Fast Like a Girl. Great post-Christmas present.
Right, exactly. And a great thing to start the new year with.
And it's going to make the whole world a better place.
Yeah, thank
All
you.
right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys all next week.
KSCO Santa Cruz, AM 1340 KO.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Jason White.